Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to our initial discussion of the brand new show, Star Wars Resistance. Today with me, I have James.
Hello everybody, how's it going out there in internet lands?
And Liam.
Hello again.
We are going to be covering just kind of our general overview and thoughts about the show, digging into some of the things that we saw, a little bit into some of the background that we've heard about leading into this. And our goal with this discussion is really to have these at least semi-regularly, not every episode, but start of a season, mid-season, end of season, really to recap and see what we saw. There are tons of recap shows out there. We just won't be one of them.
But this is the only podcast on the entire internet that talks about Star Wars. And you don't need to Google that because we wouldn't lie to you.
Just Liam would lie to you, not me. There are some great recap shows out there. You can tune into them. We're going to look at things probably in a little bit of a different manner and probably goof around a little bit because that's all I seem to be able to do with these guys.
I don't know what she's talking about. I'm perfectly serious.
Actually should warn everybody, this is going to be a spoiler heavy discussion to do with the first episode, The Recruit of Star Wars Resistance. If you really, really care about seeing it spoiler free, turn off the podcast, go and watch it, and then come back. It is available on Disney and Amazon and all sorts of different places. So please do check it out if you don't want to be spoiled. That being said, Liam, what did you think of the show?
Overall, I was quite happy with it. I'm still not super stoked with the animation style. I get that it's kind of the way that a lot of the animated shows are going, but it seems a little bit too basic for my tastes. But leading in, there was a lot of talk, and I believe there was even a press conference where somebody from Lucas had come out and said, you know, before everyone goes and gets all butthurt about this is a show for kids who were young and not adults because they're kids, which is who this is for, and just dumbed it down as much as they could so that people wouldn't be upset that it was too kid-oriented. And then I didn't really find that.
Yeah.
The characters were very well-rounded, very three-dimensional, despite the two-dimensional animation. The fact that when they arrive on the Colossus, the first thing they encounter is somebody being murdered.
Yes.
They don't sugarcoat that at all. They don't actually show the death. They show the killing, but not the death, which I thought was kind of clever.
What do you mean killing? They just threw him in the water with big things under the surface
that eat little things like you. Mm-hmm. I thought they did a good job overall. Yeah, I'm looking forward to episode 2.
Great. James?
I'm going to agree with Liam on the animation. I'm not sold on it. I enjoyed the story. Like the fact that they did a nod to the classic ships in this one by bringing back the antique. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of looking forward to see what they do with it. I agree the characters are somewhat well-rounded, but I did find them to be a lot. I don't even know how to describe it. There was just some of the ones where, okay, you are obviously the big thug. Oh, you're the little scam artist.
Archetypical?
They're archetypical, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, you know, you're watching the race happen and the racers are kind of doing everything to win except shooting each other down. Oh, wait, no, they were cheating. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where this thing goes. I'm going to give it a chance. If I have to, you know, completely turn off the video and just hear the audio, I'll give that a try.
I don't dislike the animation that much. I think the ships look very cool, and the race scenes were very well done. But it's just the rendering of faces and speech. It looks like it's all rendered in Jello.
Yeah.
Well, for my part, I have a lot of thoughts on this show because, I mean, yeah, to your point, the expectation setting leading into it was very like, oh, this is a kid's show. That's why it's brighter. And like, especially in all the previews and sneak peeks, they seem to show us only the bright versions of the show, like everything out in the sun. But there was some darkness, like when you kind of see the hallways and, you know, the internal area of Major Von Reg. When you see Major Von Reg's ship and when he's approaching Starkiller Base, like you get this dark sense of foreboding. And so they have, especially light-wise and character-wise, a good range of gray in the middle. Almost everybody on the Colossus seems like they have secondary motives. There's a lot of in-depth character, internal tension, even with the main character, Kaz, who is wanting to be a hero and a pilot, but he's been recruited to be a spy and to lie, and looking at that kid's face, like literally can't hold a secret to save his life. He literally talks about being a spy in front of people. Like, he's the worst spy. And I think that's really wonderful to set up these characters with these interesting dynamics of what they need and want. And, you know, they talk about the one pilot's father in one moment who's in charge of the whole Colossus. And so I think that's Tora's dad. He's in charge of the whole Colossus, and you only see him in the window kind of looking out. Those layers of in-depth character and intention, and generally speaking, the differences of need. So what they need as characters, or what they're after, or what they want, will create lots of plot, lots of interesting storytelling. And there's probably a lot to do with the background of all these characters that we'll see in the future, which is really exciting to me. I like the fact that we're seeing the First Order right from the get-go. We like, you know, first frame, we see the First Order attacking Kaz. And it just tells me that this is going to be layered and complex. And although it's going to come off in a cutesy manner, at least in the beginning, almost every animated show has one of these seasons, or at least the setup, to say these are who our characters are. And they almost have gentler episodes before they get into complex storytelling. From an animation perspective, it reminds me very much of Iron Man Armored Adventure. This animation is 3D, but then it uses cell shading to make it look flat. The same animation technique was just used in Dragon Prince that was on Netflix. So it's becoming more and more popular. It's just how they end up stylistically doing the characters.
They look like a collection of pieces that don't exactly fit for me, anyway.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I see it like the cell shading style because I've seen a lot of it. So maybe it's just getting used to it. I don't know. I know, James, you weren't a fan of the Rebels animation at all. Like, you prefer Clone Wars. And
well, let me be specific. Things in Rebels I didn't like their take on the stormtroopers, their take on the armor. I didn't mind the people. Every single one of them looked like somebody sat on the helmet. I left it in the car and I sat on it. Okay, it's warped.
I mean, like, for the kid portion of this, I watched it tonight with my kids, and they were both super engrossed the whole time. They loved the characters. They instantly had favorites. They were invested in what was happening. At the end of it, they asked for more episodes. So that's all you can ask for. Both of my kids loved it. So that's it. And I asked Robin when it took place, and she was like, before TFA. And she instantly knew because Starkiller Base was still around. Mm-hmm. Although she did say, what, they're not building another Death Star, are they? And I think she was joking. Like quoting that quote from, what, it's another Death Star from TFA. But it was funny. So let's briefly talk about the kind of main characters of Team Fireball that we saw. So first we have Kaz, who seems to be the main character, at least right now. It does not seem to be a super ensemble cast, except for maybe these main characters. So Kaz and Tam and Yaeger and Niku. But first, Kaz, what do you think of our main character?
I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with him.
Yeah, he seems super innocent to me.
I think that's going to be my biggest stumbling point on this, is the fact that, they're sending him on a mission like this. They've known him for 15 whole minutes? Let's send him on a super important mission, and then let's see where we go with this.
I don't know that it's that important.
Yeah, I kind of got the same feeling that they're trying to paint him as being young and innocent and naive, but they're also sending him on what is a potentially very dangerous mission, and he was already high enough ranking in the Navy that he was commanding a mission with
on his own.
With right out of the gate, he's giving orders to other pilots. So they're kind of at two places. I
get the impression that he's gotten where he's gotten because of his dad, who
literally said, you've gotten where you've gotten because I did this all for you.
Exactly, like they spelled it out.
Yeah, it's a combination of dad and luck.
But he's also kind of clumsy.
Yeah. And so even right at the beginning when he orders them gone, that's him sort of having a hero moment of, I'm going to sacrifice myself for them, because he had no idea Poe was going to come and shoot the missiles out when they're like 5 feet in front of him.
What I took from that one was, it's pretty much the entire episode of, I've got a plan, oh crap. Because he turned his X-Wing around, started shooting, and then got shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, can we jump? Oh, which is pretty much his reaction. Can we? Oh.
The first episode was like a comedy of errors, like almost like when you try to make things better and you just keep on making things worse. Like by trying to fix things, you end up making things worse. That was really the first episode in Kaz's character. I like the fact that he's trying to grow on his own without his dad. I think it's listed on I read an article that Kaz's dad is a senator with the Galactic Republic.
That's what they said in the episode. Something like that.
Right. He's a senator, and he's always kind of bailed Kaz out. And I mean, I feel like that's a very common, like, young person in their 20s, like, challenge. Like, when do I become a person of my own? Which is, I don't know, pretty compelling from a storytelling perspective. As cutesy as Kaz is in his innocence and in his trying to figure out who he is, I think he's going to grow up very quickly on the Colossus.
Well, and this is his first chance to kind of step out on his own. He's in a situation that his dad had nothing to do with. So I feel like he is kind of stepping in it quite a bit because he's so desperate to prove himself at this point. Because this is the first time that it's just him.
Yeah, and I really appreciated his line about, I grew up in the New Republic. Like, this is my home. I want to defend it. Like, it's almost like, in a weird way, saying this generation of Star Wars kids that are going to see Resistance, and this is going to be their Star Wars. This is their Star Wars. This is their introduction to Star Wars. This is what's going to mean Star Wars to them.
She makes us look us unprepared, doesn't she?
Next.
All right. Tam, the mechanic that seems to actually know what they're doing.
I think she and Kaz are going to become best friends after they become worst enemies. That's my bet.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard trope of, I hate you, now we're friends.
Yeah. And it certainly seems like there's like a mentor-mentee relationship with Yaeger, who's in charge of like the Team Fireball.
I think Yaeger's going to be the dad he really needed.
For Kaz?
Yeah, I think so. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
He's trying to teach Kaz as opposed to doing it for him. And he's like, I can't help you with this, but I'll smack you upside the head and say you're being a twit when you're being a twit.
Yeah. I get the impression that there's a lot of backstory for Yaeger. Like, a lot of things that we don't know about him. And I'm actually part of like a chat that was chatting about these episodes and actually the next two that were shown on the Disney streaming service or app in the US. So there was 3 episodes that were posted to the Disney app and only 1 that was actually released on cable, which I find very interesting. And they were saying that because of some information that comes out in the next 2 episodes, that they actually think that Yaeger has a family somewhere and that he might be the plant for the First Order.
It's possible. I think the name was brilliant. They did change the pronunciation throughout like they kind of softened it to Yaeger, because when Poe first talks about him, I actually had to back it up to like double check that they hadn't actually named a character Chuck Yaeger. Because he says it quickly and that's what it sounded like. Yaeger and Chuck Yaeger, it's even spelled the same. So I like that it's kind of an homage there to like the godfather of flying fast.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
At least I appreciate it.
For those that might not be aware, who is...
Chuck Yaeger was the test pilot who was the first person ever to break the sound barrier.
Wicked. And like it does seem like he knows piloting and ships and all of that stuff. So.
Well, and they've said several times that he and Poe have an extensive history, that they go way back, and Poe has the reputation of being the greatest pilot around. So you have to think that
Yaeger, his first breaking the sound barrier, he made it. The plane didn't. It turned into a fireball.
Yeah.
Oh, great points.
So yeah,
boys know things I don't know.
I thought that was really clever, and I just appreciated it for the name and for sort of the homage that this guy who's going to make things that fly as fast as they possibly can, being sort of a nod back to him.
That's wicked. Yeah. And the character like being this mentor and like grizzled old man, you know, like I just love that motivation. Niku, I love him so much. So somebody pointed out that they feel like he's a representation of somebody who's on the spectrum?
I think so. I think it's very much like there was a lot of talk after Guardians of the Galaxy came out that there was a lot of kids that were on the spectrum that were really identifying with Drax because it was a character that sort of had the same difficulties with social norms and that.
Social interaction, yeah.
And he became sort of a champion for that. And I see it very much the same way, that he is kind of portrayed comedically in that, but it's never shown kind of cruelly. It's just, this is how he is. When he kind of gets called out on it, he has that emotional reaction, but it's all it's handled funny but respectfully.
Yeah, I definitely see him like that, as well as like I just love him because he's enjoyable to watch. And I know that like he must be frustrating to some people like Jay.
I wouldn't mind seeing like if this is going to be a character, that's great. But if he's going to just be a walking, talking plot device, I'm kind of on him.
Yeah.
He wasn't so much a plot device as a setting device, because he hears the greatest pilot in the known universe or the universe thing. And then they actually showed how quickly word travels around the station.
Because he told one person and that one person
feathers out. And by the time they make it to the bar, everyone already knows who he is. So the word of that actually traveled faster than they walked. And I thought that was really good for the setting as a whole. And you needed a character who needed to sort of start that ball rolling.
Yeah, and also who would instantly befriend Kaz no matter who he was.
Everybody else hates him.
Yeah, like Niku is instantly Kaz's friend, like instantly believes him and instantly thinks that he's the best pilot in the galaxy. Like that's kind of a wonderful trait, even though it's played off as like very comedically. He's actually played by the actor who plays Big Head on Silicon Valley on HBO, and that character is
very similar,
also kind of similar. Yeah, so Josh Brenner, and
oblivious and positive about it.
Yeah, super positive, and like doesn't know that people are like taking advantage of him, and like just kind of goes with it, and is just and almost like
sort of rolls with
lucky, you know. Do you want to talk about the secondary characters? So like Poe Dameron showing up in the show, he was good from a lead-in. Like everybody knows who he is if they've seen the main movies, right? So
yeah, and it was that kind of that flash of familiarity to ease you into all of the new stuff.
Yeah, and we got a good like play of him and his almost like bravado, and I felt very much like Oscar Isaac came through in the animation.
Was he doing the voice?
Yeah, it was him.
I thought so. Yeah.
They have Gwendolyn Christie later on in the season playing Captain Phasma. They have him playing Poe Dameron. There's rumors that we might get Kylo Ren eventually.
Cool.
So like they're really like pulling in the big actors to make this feel closer to the movie universe, which is something that they started in Rebels. What did you think, James, of Poe Dameron?
I thought it was good. I mean, I like Oscar Isaacs. I don't think I've seen him in any role I haven't enjoyed, or in this case, heard him.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good intro, and I mean, it did give the tie-in, and as I said, this was the bit of the kid thing where it's like, yeah, I just met you. You're obviously a bit bumbling, but we have an important mission. You just joined. I haven't known you for long, but we're going to send you on it.
But that's like the magic of Star Wars. Think about Jyn Erso. We literally rescue you from prison. You are a criminal. We're going to go send you on the most important mission we can think of.
Because if we don't send you, your dad won't come anyway.
Yeah, but they literally could have sent anybody else. They just thought their best chances were with her. But they literally met a criminal and sent her on the most important mission. I mean, that is Star Wars logic. And if you accept it for Rogue One, you have to accept it for a kid's show.
I can argue the Rogue One point.
Luke Skywalker, farm kid, go and save the galaxy. Rey, scavenger of Jakku, go and save the galaxy. That is the trope of Star Wars. Literally somebody from nothing saving the world. This one is in the galaxy.
Now go hang out here and phone me if you hear anything.
Yeah, literally, like it's even less stakes. Like, hey, do you see anything weird? Poe, I'm really
I get the
bored.
feeling that this isn't a really important mission. This is we need to have somebody there, but we don't really want to spare anybody that we know. Just in case they get dropped head first off the platform.
They didn't choose Snap Wexley to go and like go and hang out.
But he did leave his best friend with him. So obviously there's something important going on there.
I think that's why we had Poe, was so that we could have BB-8, who just like in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, is the most emotive character in the entire thing.
Oh my God, I love BB-8. BB-8, keep an eye on him. And like you see his little like radar eye, like look up at him and you get a little beep like, yeah, I'm watching you. More BB-8 is always better, right?
Yes.
That's what the Force Awakens editors said. Is if you can fit in BB-8, you should just cut to BB-8, whatever he's doing.
And he still sounds like a basketball whenever anything happens to him.
Yeah, when he bounces or whatever. Yeah. I still don't understand how he does stairs. That like goes upstairs.
Because going downstairs, BB-8 going down the stairs in The Force Awakens, when Rey finds the lightsaber.
Yeah.
As dumb as it sounds, just the little background shot of BB-8 going down the stairs is my favorite part of that entire movie. And anytime I even think about it, it just puts a smile back on my face.
He has a harpoon.
It's wonderful. Okay, yes, I guess he does harpoon and like he can like fine.
They're going to do some horrible prequels to the sequels in which he gets jetpacks.
Hey, those don't work anymore. What did we think of Aunt Z, who was like the barkeep, who was, it looked like the same race as Unkar Plutt.
I was waiting for her to say a half portion.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love her so much. She's like cruel and cutthroat and willing to send the one guy to go and throw you off the platform, the Gorg seller.
The thug. Here's a question for both of you on this. Is it just me or does this sort of come across as it's one platform, but almost like two different civilizations there?
I'd say more than two. It's almost like a Deep Space Nine situation. That's just where everyone happens to have gathered.
I get the Deep Space Nine, like there's lots of different communities and layers to the station.
Well, there was cliques, but I mean, like, there's sort of the upper, which is the tower, which has the better food, the better everything, where you have money.
Or is it? We haven't actually seen in the tower yet. That's just the rumor.
Yeah. Well, I was going with that one. It's the tower. That's where the pilots are. And then that's all run by the guy who runs the station. But then we come down into the, whatever you want to call it, the slums, which is where Aunt Z owns it.
Yeah, no, she definitely seems in charge, which is kind of nice to see, almost like a mafia boss, like the Cork, but like as a lady character who will literally send her hitman to murder you if you challenge somebody and then back away. Like that is some dark stuff for a kid's show.
See, for me, as much as I appreciated the character, I did see her as kind of the most standard cookie cutter type of character here. That is the smarmy bartender, knows all of the backroom secrets, runs the gambling. When the big bar fight breaks out, it was a 100% by the numbers Old West saloon fight scene, right down to the one guy at the bar that you know is going to spend the entire series at the bar, the old guy with the mustache, just drinking casually while the fight goes on around him. When bottles and that are getting thrown, she's washing cups and then catches one without looking and keeps washing while taking bets on who's going to win. It was
very archetypical, yeah.
The little guy hitting the glass was the only atypical thing because he was supposed to go through the glass and alert the people outside. So the one guy in the entire station with a gun can shoot in the ceiling and stop the fight.
Well, he was the only one who probably cared to stop the fight.
I don't know. Everyone seemed pretty shocked by the blaster. And it didn't seem like the sort of group that should be really shocked by a blaster.
We saw a few other like backup characters. We saw the two characters that ran the parts shop.
Yeah, I forget one of them's name. The other one, Flix.
Flix and...
When I first saw that scene, I thought Flix was actually the same voice actor as Morgan. It isn't. I looked it up, but it's very similar diction, very similar kind of flow to the voice and where the weird little lifts in that are.
That's Jim Rash from Community.
Was as Morgan or who's Flix?
Flix.
It's just the voices. Yeah. That was the first thing that popped into my head when I heard Flix talk because he has very, very similar speaking pattern.
Mm-hmm. We also got Greg Probst as the announcer. Did you recognize him? I'm like, he's back as an announcer?
That's because that's what he's good at. I mean, let the man play to his skills.
Oh, fair. Yeah. And we got a little cameo by C-3PO or Anthony Daniels as C-3PO over the intercom on, I'm assuming it's what kind of cruiser is that, James? It was like the Tantive V4.
I thought they kind of implied that that's what it was.
No, the Tantive 4 was destroyed. When Vader said, destroy the ship and tell everybody that all on board were killed.
CR-90 Corvette.
Yeah, that one.
And originally, they didn't officially destroy it. They said, they basically brought it onto the Star Destroyer and closed the door behind it.
Okay, fine.
However, I'm pretty sure the Rebels had a hard time getting it back at that point. Maybe they broke into the impound lot, took off the load.
Took off the boot.
just with some bolt cutters. We also had BB-8, which I think was successful in the show. And, hey, whatever kind of twisting of reality they had to make to bring BB-8 in was wonderful, because having more BB-8 is better than less BB-8. And we got a new old droid called Bucket, who is definitely an astromech, but without its coverings.
I have one of those in my garage. It looks very similar.
Does it? Yeah, it definitely looks like an astromech.
It's a pile of parts I need to finish.
Yeah, to me, it looks like an astromech without the nice round coverings.
Here's the cool geeky thing. If anybody's ever been to Star Wars Celebration and gone into the droid builder's room, you'll occasionally, well, not occasionally, there's always somebody with a 3/4 finished R2 or less that brings it. Mm-hmm. And that's what it looks like, folks.
That's awesome. That's what I thought.
The only thing is usually they have a dome on them, but not just the eye, because that is kind of hard to get the eye to just float there. But yeah, that's what a 3/4 finished astromech looks like, because all the parts are in there, it works, it just doesn't have the outer skin.
How long until we get a working Bucket droid? Do you think we'll get one at Celebration?
It's probably already out there.
I'm betting somebody's going, I just need to take off the dome and put an eye on there, and I've got one.
Well, and they have to build the helmet too, right? That's
available at Toys R Us.
They have to probably paint.
Oh. No, but that wouldn't fit an astromech dome. That would have to be that helmet would have to be big enough to fit.
Yeah, it looks like he's just wearing a pilot's helmet, right?
It is a pilot's helmet. I mean, it for the size of it, honestly, that's maybe, if you were to go with it, an extra 25% on it. And I know no R2 builders that don't have access, if not own several 3D printers. I'm betting somebody has. I'm betting one's underway right now for tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome! I'm excited. I'm excited to see the first droid built and one that can drive around and stuff like that.
But is nobody going to speak to the vulgarity of the character? Because as much as it pains me to use this phrase, it was established in the prequels that a droid without its coverings is considered to be nude.
It's true.
My parts are showing.
R2 would point that out.
So
when you get over 100 years old, you can run around naked too. You kind of stop caring in your 90s.
I know. He's at least probably 130, 140?
Just so that we're clear here, the two of you are defending nudity as long as it's somebody really old that's nude.
I mean, are you gonna stop an old man from being nude?
I'm not gonna put him on screen in a children's show.
Fair enough. I loved the one joke right at the start when he's on the Corvette. And Kaz is and say hello to the general for me. And then BB-8 and his astromech have the little hello back and forth. And he's stop making fun of me. That was great. I love when droids make fun of humans. It makes me so happy. Even though we couldn't tell what they were saying, they were kind of miming it out. It was great.
I think you could have been perfectly accurate there, Marie-Claire, if you stopped at I love when droids.
I love when droids.
You missed one character, the Fireball. That ship's obviously got some sort of history.
Oh, fair enough.
I
Yeah.
feel like it has a lot of the design language from the first X-Wings. The wing shape is the same, the tips, the canopy. It's just on a cylindrical body and only has the one set of wings.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at some of the other ships that are out there, they're all something. Well, except for the young lady, I can't remember her name right now, but hers looks pretty much store bought.
Yeah,
but all of them look like they took something and customized it.
Tora Doza.
Yeah, Tora, hers is a standard one, but every other one, the TIE Fighter, that's a modified TIE Fighter. That's a they took a this is what you sort of expect with street racers. They take it off the shelf, they mod it into something that can work for them. Throw in a better engine, let's put some, I should have watched, Fast and the Furious to get some of the terms. throw in a NOS canister. Something they do things like that to all of these, but
Yeah, they've got overnight parts from Japan.
yeah, but it's that ship there. It obviously has some history because I mean, if you're dealing with a ship that bursts into flames every time you look at it cross-eyed, you'd toss it. You wouldn't keep it. Yet he still got this ship.
Yeah, it's probably got some cool history. From another aesthetic perspective, I felt like the music was really cool and interesting. We got a play of the battle fanfare for Poe, so that's the like main da, 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 when he arrived on the scene. When they were talking about Princess Leia in the hallway, we heard her music. We heard the princess theme. We also heard it when we saw her briefly on the holo. So they're using the old themes just kind of in the underlay of the music and kind of blending it in. I felt like there's a scene where Kaz is sitting down with BB-8 kind of talking about what he's dreaming. It's like his I want moment from a musical perspective. And the music sounds like it is the Force theme, but then like changes kind of into almost like a desire theme. So it's like he wants to be this hero, but he's not quite there yet. And I'm very interested to see what happens with the music. Like I love how these composers are taking this music and really making it their own. And the composer for this episode was Michael Tavara. And I don't know anything about him, but we will watch your career with great interest. I felt like the sound design was really good too. Even when music wasn't playing, you could hear the ships, like hum of the ships in the background. It just felt like Star Wars. They did a really good job of the sound design. Good job, Skywalker sound, as always.
I have to say it's the detail that I love. It was, sorry, I want to word this right, because you've actually made me listen to things I never paid attention to before. But it was almost everything had its own noises. Like each ship had a different sort of noise they made. Sort of going by my take on it, so if it's completely off, but I mean the Fireball had a little bit of a rougher sound to it, like a kind of in need of a tune-up car. Torres' ship, it sounded like Daddy bought her a new Porsche. The classic Corvette that they were on, the one that had seen every battle since from Scarif up until everything. That it had its own noises. I can't really put my finger on what they sounded like, the exact description for.
Well, and it had a hum in the background. Like it was like almost like white noise of a ship.
Yeah.
Like the sound design in this show was like a rich velvety layer of Star Wars. And it was because Matt Wood, who does Star Wars sound design, is doing the sound design for the show. So his entire group, they're building the Foley for this entire universe.
Well, like I said, when this thing came up, it's done by, Filoni's doing this. I'm automatically going to give it a try. He handpicked some of the best people for the show. Yeah,
and he's still, on board as the lead of animation, but obviously he's taking on some new stuff too with The Mandalorian first episode, and he's got a lot going on. From a creation perspective. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the plot threads that were entered into this, as well as, a little bit of the background behind the fighter feel, and like how Dave Filoni spoke about the show, he said, he really wanted to draw on this fighter feel from World War II, but also by pulling in and referring to a character as the Red Baron of the show, it instantly makes me feel like World War I fighters. And the lead up to World War I was a really interesting time because literally airplanes were just invented. And at the time, because of the tensions, and the tension especially between France, Britain, Germany, and kind of all of those areas in Europe, both countries were in this leading up into World War I, before the powder keg happened in the Balkans with Archduke Ferdinand being assassinated and setting off World War I. The tension and the want to do something heroic was building on both sides. The Wright brothers built a facility in the southern part of France to train the French Air Force. And the German Air Force started in 1910. So it was like leading up into World War I, there was these two groups. And the only thing that these fighter pilots had to do other than train and practice and fly against each other was espionage. They would fly and do surveillance of kind of enemy lines and to see, hey, how far can they get? Can they get back? And can they see what's going on? And especially leading into how strategic the Red Baron and his group, which eventually was called the Flying Circus by the Allies. I cannot pronounce the name. Liam.
No, it was way longer than Liam.
No, how do you say it? The actual German name for his group.
Jagdgeschwader.
Yeah. They specifically were called the Flying Circus because they would travel around the countryside, setting up tents, hang out for a while, and then fly away. They were like uncatchable in a way, and they were strategic, and then they would strike from these new locations.
And in oddly brightly colored aircraft, too. It was very, very theatrical.
Well, and why they colored their aircraft that way was so that the Allies would think that that aircraft was a crop duster. So that they wouldn't actually think that they were dangerous. And like Dave Filoni by and this whole writing crew, by calling out a character and saying, is this our Red Baron, is calling to that. And the tension that led into World War I is very poignant. Like you can see, like Kaz is stressed out and Poe is stressed out, and they know that this attack is coming. They know that the First Order is a threat. And I think that that's just leading into, and what I see is happening is this show is probably going to go past The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi at some point in the future and continue on and tell stories like in that intermediate time. Because The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi happened over the worst 2-week period in existence for them.
Well,
right?
I'm going to drop my geek now. There's something you did the World War II thing. I'll give you a little bit of other information. The Red Baron's also a nod to some classic Star Wars characters, Baron Fell and the 181st.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's in my opinion. I mean, he is the leader of the elite fighters, and the one thing they're known for is the red stripe on their uniform.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
that's a big stripe.
There could be
guy.
a big stripe, like in universe, out of universe. I think that it is very much the Red Baron from World War I. But again, there is that.
Well, that's also
in-universe.
the Baron Fell too. He was a nod to that. He was an elite fighter, and he's, there's definitely no way this guy is Baron Fell, because by that point in time he'd be over 100 and something. He was already an old grump when he took place in the classic.
Oh, so he's probably naked then.
Probably.
Probably. I think what it's going to show is that we might in season see the destruction of Hosnian Prime, because Kaz's dad is on Hosnian Prime as a senator. And to actually see that moment from a character that hopefully we've grown to absolutely, be invested in by that point will mean so much more when we see it from his perspective.
I want to see who his dad is.
Yeah, he does have a name. We didn't actually get to see him because of the cloaking or whatever. It's Hamato Ziono.
Well, I mean, that may be his name. They obviously are doing something with his dad, and I want to know why. Because they intentionally went to the point where you can't see him. He's hidden. Is this somebody we're going to recognize?
Maybe they just didn't want to animate him right now.
Well, this could very well be somebody we're going to recognize.
It's true, yeah. I specifically think, though, that Kaz might lose his dad and his family on Hosnian Prime, and that'll give us, even more motivation to pull for the Resistance and things like that.
It would make sense considering where they sort of set things up and where they are in the timeline.
Yeah, it's 6 months, right? So they could do all of season 1 or part of season 2 as the lead up to, episode 9 next year. Like they could get all the way to episode 9 in like the start of the fall and then have the Hosnian Prime Starkiller base attack and then cut for season break next year and then come back after episode 9 and continue on and do the filling in time.
Yeah, I could see them in the first season just because of where it's laid out timeline-wise, that they could use that first attack from Starkiller base as the season finale for season 1. That they oh god, here's the call to action in the hero's journey.
Yeah, exactly. And like what is the resistance turning into? Because I don't know that they're going to stay on the Colossus and that planet the whole time of this show.
No, I got the feeling that that's sort of I expect it's going to be there for at least the first season and possibly into season 2, but that's more of a place where they needed to drop the character so that they can basically have the gathering of the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it would be really interesting if they told us stories after The Last Jedi from Kaz's perspective, but not giving away anything for episode 9 in the start of next season. You know, like any of that lead up.
And speaking of gathering the team.
Yes.
I thought it was really clever. The scene where they had sort of it was almost like a video game screen of pick your opponent. I thought was a clever way of doing the first, like a soft introduction of a lot of the pilot characters without actually introducing them or showing them.
Well, we did learn one name, which was Hype Phazon.
But they just sort of, they are. And if anyone watched the lead ups to this, they actually did little, like, mate them on them.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a clever way in show of saying, basically, here are some of the characters that you're going to need to pay attention to. Here they are on a big screen in the middle of the screen.
The one I want to meet is
and like
Imperial.
Yeah.
Not First Order.
Oh, yeah.
Imperial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be like an evil Rex. It's going to be awesome.
I thought that was a really great way of showing us, not telling us, you know? Yeah, that was great. Did you guys have anything else that really caught you from what was set up in the show, kind of from what they showed us?
There's one thing that I'm not sure if it was just a plot hole, but it's something that I kind of hope comes back to bite him in the ass later, is when he went to get the fish thing for the Gorg. The agreement was...
I tweeted out that Gorgs eat porgs.
The agreement was, okay, I'll put your shop's logo on my ship, and then when I win, you win. I didn't see any distinctive logos on the ship during the race.
I mean, we'll have to look to see if there's a Gorg, because his shop's logo is literally a Gorg.
I did not see one. I rewatched it today, and I didn't notice one. So I'm hoping it's not just a plot hole that they forgot. I really hope that comes back you said you were going to put this logo on off the side with you. Maybe not that far. But
yeah.
Maybe feet first.
And like Dave Filoni has said very clearly when Rebels was on, there are no filler episodes. I very much believe that this show will be that as well, that there's no filler episodes, that little things in these episodes will build and come back into importance later. So hopefully we see Orca's Gorgish wrath come back.
So I'd like to see that, and I would like to see at some point Sabine and Ahsoka show up and just be like, hey, you guys seen Ezra? Okay, we're going to keep looking then.
30 years later, what?
I just like Sabine and Ezra. Or Sabine and Ahsoka.
Any thoughts on stuff you saw that you were interested in taking a look at more, or thinks that are leading into things, James?
I'm kind of wondering, because the way they're setting this thing up is, like we said earlier, it's kind of a Deep Space Nine thing. I think your best friends in this show are going to be the ones you need to keep an eye on. I think your worst enemies are going to be the ones who have your back when you least expect it. And I think the
Yaeger thought, I think Yaeger might like have some dark secrets or something.
He knows Poe, and that's obviously a fighter of some kind. Maybe it's his version of Poe's Black X-Wing.
So this kind of brings up an interesting point I wanted to make, is that I did talk about it earlier, but in the US on the Disney app, they released the first 3 episodes, but they only on television and in Canada released The Recruit, the first episode, the pilot, the hour-long episode. And we know that the Disney streaming service is coming out in 2019. They specifically have this show airing at 10 p.m. at night That is when it airs. So locally, East Coast time, 10 p.m., Pacific time, 10 p.m. If you've got time shift or whatever, you can see it some other time, or you could record it and see it whenever you want, which is, what I did. But on the Disney app in the US, they posted these 3 episodes at 10 a.m. It seems like they might be trying out their kind of different approaches to different things. And if they keep on posting, say, more episodes on the Disney app and kind of seeing what people's reactions are, like if they're, subscribing or watching it on the Disney app, like maybe they'll push up the release of Disney Play. I don't know. What do you think of that, guys?
I like Disney. Disney owns my franchise. I cannot speak against Disney.
I just hope we get the Disney streaming service in Canada. It will already have my money as soon as it's available.
I kind of hope we don't get the Disney streaming service in Canada, because then things will be pulled off of the TV that I already have, and I'll have to pay for another streaming service. And it's getting to the point where every show has its own $20 a month streaming service, and it's just, I'm going to have to stop watching a lot of shows.
I know, right?
Can't I just have TV with shows on it? It's like the Netflix model, like now with everybody creating their own streaming service, is almost working against some companies. And against the end consumer.
We're not... Yeah, well, and in Canada, we're not getting the DC Universe streaming service. So all of the new DC Universe shows are being purchased for display on Netflix,
which I have, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah, so we're lucky in Canada because we don't need to get another streaming service. Whereas in the US, there's all of these different streaming services, right? And I'm just wondering, what's the point of cable cutting versus cable keeping? And will people still... I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a really interesting time with all of these streaming services kind of taking over.
Maybe it will actually help to bring people together, because each person will only be able to afford so many streaming services. So we'll have to go to each other's houses to watch certain shows.
Yeah, exactly. We will enjoy it because we can only afford to have
I only have 73 streaming services, but what about the 75th show I want to watch? What if I don't have the streaming service for the part that came after the second commercial break?
Oh my goodness.
Oh God, it's going to be like those comic book series where it's like, well, you have to pick up this streaming service to pick up the secret parts of this episode.
It's becoming that way. Netflix was like the all-in-one, right? And they had tons of content. And now it's not becoming that way. I don't know. The Disney streaming service is going to have so much of the content that I want to watch.
Disney, Star Wars, Marvel.
I know, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, Fox, because of the purchase of Fox.
And it's going to cost so much. You just know it.
No, they said that they're going to aim for $10.
That's $10 US. That's like $79.50.
Sass. Nothing but sass from you two.
Have we met?
All right.
But I do not speak ill of the House of Mouse.
No, you don't. Because they own everything I love. All right, so wrapping up, thoughts. Closing statements on this show, James.
It's always the first season is the hardest. It has to find its stride. They have to find what works for each character. So I'm going to keep watching, and the animation may grow on me. I may decide I absolutely cannot stand it and cannot watch another episode. But I'm hoping I'm going to like it, because I like everything about this except the visuals. And it's not even I hate them with a passion. They're not really my style, is the description.
James, to be decided with whether he will be back for future episodes. If he doesn't watch them, it might just be Liam and I. Liam, final thoughts.
I watched like a grown-up and kept notes. So I did sort of a positives, negatives. And I will say that the positives list is longer. I did like the story. I thought the writing seemed very solid. The characters and the voice acting was very good. I really did like the ship designs. I like the idea of taking Star Wars style ships that we already kind of recognize and then customizing them, because that's what I've done with my things that I drive around. So why shouldn't they? It didn't seem super kid oriented and super soft, and especially when you say they're releasing it at 10 p.m. maybe they're not aiming for the little kids so much as they sort of hinted towards. And it really did maintain the Star Wars aesthetic. It sounds very Star Warsy, and if you're looking in the background, it's dirty. And that's the thing with Star Wars, is everything looks used. If it was all shiny and clean like Lando's Millennium Falcon, that's Star Trek.
Yeah, well, and to that point, both Clone Wars and Rebels struggled with that from a visuals design perspective. Everything always looked clean, even if it was the most dirty planet. Because of the animation style that they chose to do, they struggled with making things look like the Ghost probably wasn't that clean, and it looked spotless all the time.
Yeah, but this one, everything on the platform looked used. It looked like they were like it was a slum, like they were kind of struggling.
Well, the Corvette at the beginning, the walls on it looked dinged and bashed. That ship had seen some action.
You look like you don't really want to touch anything and then touch your face.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're going to pick up rabies, tetanus,
pink eye, something
else. Yeah, like pink eye.
For me, on the
from the
on the negative side of it, I don't care for the animation style, which we've established. It was just sort of meh. I don't hate it, but it's not my thing. And Marie-Claire is probably going to fight me on this one, but honestly, overall, I found the music to be just kind of eh. It had a few pops, but for the most part, it was just eh.
I think it was purposeful to set the mood, but there was darker points in the music, and then there was lighter points, and then there was this almost like hopeful, melodic part that we got to hear for Kaz. I think it was purposefully toned down for this first episode, and I think that once we'll get into like action or spying, or maybe certain characters will get certain plays of music. I was hoping for, when we saw Starkiller Base, a play of the Imperial dun 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 theme, and we didn't get it.
I just found it kind of eh. I would have almost preferred to have disliked the music, but honestly, the music for the most part wasn't interesting enough to be bad.
Oh.
It had its few pops.
I didn't.
But look at that.
Overall,
you're hurting your feelings.
It's just
No. I don't feel that way. I feel like it did its job, which was setting the mood. I didn't hear any character themes, which is what I look for in Star Wars, other than the ones that were obviously pulled out for like Poe and for Leia. I want to hear Kaz have a theme.
Well, here's the thing.
He's the main character of the show.
Right now we're in the first episode.
yeah.
And this is just food for thought. Who is going to be a character? Like, there's a lot of individual characters, but who's going to be important? They can't start laying that out for us now.
Yeah, well, Kaz is the main character, right? Like, he should have.
But then if he gets one,
his own, like,
and they suddenly play it for somebody else, are they important?
No, but they don't do it for everybody, right? Like,
that's my point.
I don't know.
Star Wars is pretty good for using the music as a character.
Yeah. But I mean, right now, it's a case of, we're going to this going, who's important? Could it be that little guy with the big jaw? Could it be the big thug?
I would say, comparing it to Rebels, Kevin Kiner did an amazing job of making the music, especially like when Ezra was first using the Force. Like, you could hear that little like dun, 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 dun. Like, you could hear that noise when he was using the Force in the music, and it became its own character right away. And I don't know that it's hit that point, to your point, like where it's adding to the oxygen.
Yeah, this is episode 1. So it's like, I'll be with you till the end of the season. So I'm going to give it that. I enjoyed more than I didn't.
I do actually have some negatives about the show and some critique. I felt like parts of their crew were very slow.
It didn't have to be an hour.
Well, like 40 minutes when you cut out commercials and stuff like that, right? Like, I just still felt like there was slow build moments, and I don't know that it needed them. And they do take time, like these cutaway moments where you see the race happening all the time, and you see them go through one of the rings, and it's almost like they use that as a transition to a new thought or a new part of the plot, etc. When the race is happening. And I feel like because those scenes are so beautiful to watch, the ships going through the rings, it almost slows down the action a little bit. And I'm not sure how much they'll use that in future episodes, but in this intro episode, it felt like it slowed the action a little bit for me. I'm looking forward to seeing where all these characters go. I really like Tam a lot. I just feel like she came off as incredibly angry, and I'm not sure I understand her motivations. Kaz being a little bit silly in many ways. Like, I'm worried he's gonna get tetanus or pink eye just from licking the wrong thing. You know, like I'm worried Kaz isn't gonna make it through the season just because he's gonna get like scurvy. Like eat some vitamin C. You know, but generally speaking, I see the layers of complexity there. I see the intention and the conflict, especially in Taz, between, you know, his dad wanting to be a spy, wanting to be a pilot, wanting to be a hero, and like not able to being and just surviving, right? Like making money and like not dying. All of these different conflicting things that are going on with him, and that he's not a perfect character. I cannot stand watching a show around somebody who's perfect. And so far, every single person on the Colossus looks like they're beautifully flawed. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the behind the scenes of the First Order, which it seems like we'll get like maybe little glimpses of, and kind of seeing what they're up to, because this time period leading into The Force Awakens, we don't know anything about. It's like this big black zone from a canon perspective, and we're going to be given these little beautiful nuggets of what's happening. In one of the trailers, we saw Kylo Ren's shuttle, the command shuttle. I hope we get Kylo Ren. I hope the rumor is true. I think that would be amazing, like little scene or motive. I don't think he's going to be the big villain of this season, and if they bring him in, it will be strategically. I suspect that they'll probably use that shuttle for Phasma. In general, I'm really just looking forward to everything about the show, and we'll probably watch it once on my own at 10 p.m. and then with my kids when they're ready to, you know, be up in the morning.
One thing I did find on the rewatch was I was paying a little bit more attention to backgrounds.
Yeah.
And virtually every character on the Colossus that you see just wandering by in the background, you can tell by the designs of them that if they needed to, they could pull pretty much any background no-name character into an episode, and they already have an entire backstory.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed really... yeah, very real and very organic that way. And I really liked that. And I hope that it's something where you do get to know a huge cast where I will not stand a chance of remembering half of their names, but you'll kind of recognize and you'll know, even if it's just something that you frequently see them doing the same thing in the background. I think it's something they could really play off of, because it is quite a few potential characters in a closed environment. Well,
I was looking at future episodes, and it looks like we're going to get Elijah Wood as a guest star in one of the episodes, playing a character. We're definitely getting Gwendolyn Christie. It's already like a hugely stacked cast in general, like Stephen Stanton, who played, who was in Rebels as a few main key characters. He's a very well-known, he's a very well-known voice actor. Hype Faison's being played by Donald Faison, who is most well-known from Clueless.
Well, I guess that character was written.
Yes, it was. They specifically used his last name.
Yeah, we're even naming him after you. You have to do this voice.
You literally need to play this character. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who was Governor Price in Rebels, and she's going to be Freya Fenris, who's you saw her on the board, the leaders board. She's the blonde in the red. So she's going to be one of the aces. I'm looking forward to seeing who else comes out of the woodwork if we get Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I will be very
He usually seems game for doing stuff.
I know, right? Yeah. I mean, and they've recorded like a weird amount of lines for him for like some of the video games. some of the mobile app games. His voice is like all over the place as Kylo Ren. So they probably brought him in, had him record like the 10 lines they needed to for the episode, and then sent him on his merry way.
Maybe we'll introduce Rose and get some back character out of it.
That'd be cool.
Come back, Kelly. The internet was wrong. You were a treasure, and we love you.
She's back.
I did it.
No, she did. She wrote an article, kind of explaining what happened and that she's doing good. All right, James, thank you for being on the show. Oh wait, first, now this was our discussion of the start of the Star Wars Resistance season. We will be back at some point, maybe November, maybe December, when things wrap up from a season or a mid-season perspective. We'll see how often we can do this, but this was fun just to chat about what's going on, and I'm really excited to see where the plot goes. Thank you, James and Liam, for coming on the show. James, where can people find you?
Well, pretty much if you see the name Skullflare out there, it's probably me. Just don't hold it against me. You can find me working on my props in Skull's Armory. As always, I'm with 501st doing stuff with them. And yeah, that's mostly me.
And Liam?
For my other podcast, you can find me at A Story Not Forgotten, and we are on iTunes and Google Play and Podbean, and we're all over the place except Spotify. I don't think we're on there. For my pretty pictures, you can find me at Trath Originals, which is TRATH Originals, and that is mostly done on Facebook, but it's also occasionally on other platforms or at trathoriginals.com. And since I know that this is going to be coming out shortly, I will do a plug on the fact that October 2018 is Trath Originals' 20th anniversary. So I am doing a print giveaway through Facebook. So you can actually enter to win a framed print of one of my 6 favorite bird pictures from the last 20 years.
Ooh.
Just hit Trath Originals on Facebook for that.
That's awesome. And I am Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and this has been What the Force. We're on Twitter at WT Force Show, on Facebook at What the Force Podcast. Our website is whattheforce.ca. Feel free to find us on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and all of those podcast locations. We're also available on YouTube. Weirdly, we get a lot of listens on there. If you enjoy the show, feel free to reach out to us and start a conversation. We really enjoyed Star Wars Resistance and look forward to seeing more of it. Take care, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the show. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, Internet.